Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm going to be showing you Cirque's latest Do Good polish and their new Good Vibrations collection. Their Do Good polish actually launched earlier in the month, but the Good Vibrations collection launches today. It's a 6-piece set inspired by self-love and compassion, all the warm, fuzzy, cozy feelings. It consists of 3 jelly polishes, 2 thermals, and a glitter topper. So as always, I will save more of my thoughts at the end. For now, let's just get into the swatches. So starting with the Do Good polish that launched earlier this month, this is My, and this is a bright cherry red shimmer graphic with a fine gold to green color shifting shimmer and an intense scattered holographic pigment. I really love this one. It had such a beautiful, full coverage, very even formula. It is a little bit sheer on the first coat alone, but I think because of how evenly it applies, you can still get away with it in 1 coat if you want. I'm going to be building it up in 2 though, and I think it's full coverage enough. There might be a little hint of nail line, but I just don't think it's necessary to do a 3rd coat for the shade. But yeah, it was absolutely gorgeous. I love the bright red base color, the gold shimmer, and that intense hollow sparkle. I had to get a clip out of focus to kind of show that off a bit. It was absolutely gorgeous. Definitely a perfect polish to celebrate Lunar New Year while also benefiting the organization Vietnamese Boat People. So getting into the Good Vibrations collection, the first polish we have is Kismet, and this is a light gray toned lilac sheer. I knew I was going to love this one just because it's so incredibly light and refreshing. On the first coat, it really brightens up my nails so much, which you know I'm a big fan of because I just always complain about my staining. I really love that you can use this as a palette cleanser just on 1 coat alone. I'm going to be building it up in 3 coats for my swatch here. On 2 coats, it does start to build up a little bit nicer. You start to see a bit more of that color, but it's still definitely incredibly sheer, where this is not one of those Cirque jellies that's milky and it's gonna have a lot more coverage and cover up your nail line. This really is on the sheer jelly side, where even on 3 coats, you see a considerable amount of nail line, but I think it looks so great. It's so fresh and clean. The next polish is Hearth Jelly, and this is described as a terracotta colored jelly, which I absolutely love. I knew this was going to be another favorite from this collection because I just really love terracotta colored polishes. I just find them to be super flattering. It might not be so flattering here on the first coat because it is a little bit sheer. You can obviously see a lot of nail line and even some of my staining, so there's almost like a gradient effect going on maybe, but it does build up really nicely on 2 and 3 coats, where I think this is more on the slightly milky jelly side of the finish. Like, it's still gonna be sheer, you're still gonna see some nail line, but I don't know, there's something about the color and the opacity of this coverage that just blurs the nail line a little bit. So yeah, I was a big fan of this shade. I think it's just so pretty and flattering. I love that squishy, milky feel of the jelly look, and if anything, I will say that color-wise, it leans a little bit more coral in real life. I think it's picking up a little too orangey. And the last jelly in the collection is Zen Jelly, and this is described as a deep purple gray toned taupe brown colored jelly. While that definitely is a mouthful for this polish, it still is very accurate because it really is one of those shades that really blurs the line between, is it a brown, is it a gray, is it purple, which I think is pretty interesting. I don't have a lot of shades like this in my collection, if any at all, so I really did like the color of it. The formula though wasn't my favorite. I found that this one was a little bit more streaky compared to the previous 2 jellies, so I didn't love how it looked on the first and second coat, and I tried to do a slightly thicker 3rd coat just to sort of even everything out, and I do think it looked better. With the 3rd coat, it definitely does cover up more of that nail line, so I would say it's one of those like milky jelly crelly finishes. But yeah, on me, I feel like it's picking up a little bit warmer. Like in the bottle, there's more of a cool tone color to it, so again, it might be my staining that's affecting the color. So on me, I feel like it almost leans more brown, but either way, I still really like this shade. I just thought it looked so flattering. Now getting into the thermals, the first one that we have is Amour Propre, which I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing or butchering, but it is French for self-love. So this thermal is a coral when it's in its cold state, as you can see in the bottle and as I'm applying it, but it turns into this pale pink lilac when it's warm. There's also this rich lavender shimmer that does shift to like a pinky kind of color in indirect lighting, but it's kind of hard to see. You'll see what I mean later. But yeah, here on the first coat, you can already start to see the transition where the base of my nail is turning into that lighter pale pink lilac color, and the tips of my nail is staying in that corally kind of shade. So here it is built up in 2 coats. I decided to stop it here just because I personally would wear this on 2 coats. This had a great formula. I would just say it's like a little bit sheer on maybe the curly side. So on 2 coats here, you can still see my nail line, especially as the color warms up even more because it really lightens up in the warm state. But I do think it was a really pretty transition between the soft pink to that brighter coral color, and of course the lavender to pink shifting shimmer. It just really encapsulates the name of the polish and the collection. The other thermal in the collection is Ebb and Flow, and this is a red toned purple when cold, as seen here in the bottle, that transitions to an aqua blue-green when warm, and there's a sprinkle of scattered hollow. I thought this was such a fun shade. Like, I really love the transition from that bright aqua blue color to that purple. Again, it might not look super cool here on the first coat because it's still a little bit sheer, but I found that this one builds up really beautifully in 2 coats. You can already see that intense transition because I was just running really warm at this point. Look at that. It is just so fun. And obviously I'm also a big fan of that scattered hollow glitter. I just think it's so pretty. So yeah, I was pretty impressed with these. And rounding out the collection, we have Heart of Gold, which is this chunky gold holographic glitter topper that has these heart shapes, hex glitters in multiple sizes, and these huge circular glitters, which I'm honestly not the biggest fan of. But as far as it being a chunky gold glitter topper, it was cute, it was fun. I would say it is kind of base heavy, so I did kind of have to dip back in and like fish around for some of the glitters. You probably saw me dab on that heart glitter because it just was not coming off of my brush, but it still wasn't bad in the end. So here it is over Kismet. I just did like 1 coat-ish with a little bit of dabbing and manipulation. I got a couple more heart glitters this time. Then I decided to do a jelly sandwich with Hearth Jelly, and I actually managed to get one of the big round glitters. This was interesting. I feel like this somehow reminds me of food, and so I don't love that, but having the 1 circular glitter, it wasn't so bad, especially on my thumb. But lastly, I did a glitter gradient over Zen Jelly. I just was applying it with the brush, so because it's a little bit base heavy, you can see it got maybe a little too thick near my tip, so it might be better to sponge this on. And here is the collection lineup. So honestly, at first, I didn't think it was the most cohesive collection, but after trying them on, I do really enjoy them, so it was kind of weird. So I'd love to know what you think of this lineup. So now getting into comparisons, we of course are starting with My and looking at it next to Cirque's Velvet Rope from their Cosmic Discotheque collection a couple of years ago. This immediately came to mind when I first saw the photos of My. They definitely are similar, but not exact dupes. Velvet Rope has a bit more of a scarlet red-orange leaning base color. It's not as true of a cherry red as My, which is also a shimmer graphic, so it has all this intense sparkle, but I think Velvet Rope has a stronger shimmer. Then for Kismet, I wanted to show this next to Cirque's Dove Jelly from their glazed collection several years ago at this point. This is a very light-toned gray polish that I think is pretty neutral. It doesn't really lean too cool or warm for me. If you like wearing these jellies on 1 coat, I think you'll be able to still tell a difference between these, even though they are so light. Kismet really just has such a brightening effect on the nail, while Dove Jelly just has almost like a milky, almost smoky sort of look to it, but it's still really flattering, I think. And obviously the more coats that you do, the more it's going to build up, and I would say that Dove Jelly has a little bit more coverage. Like, it covers up more of my nail line than Kismet did, so it's more of that milky kind of finish instead of being super sheer and translucent. So because Kismet has a little bit of that purple tone to it, I wanted to also compare it next to Cirque's Lavender Sky, which is their lavender jelly. It's easily one of my favorite jellies from them. And here's also a quick bottle comparison next to Linen, which is the white jelly, so you can hopefully get a better understanding of the bright tone of color that Kismet is. I feel like it might be kind of hard to tell because it's just so neutralizing on my nail, but it's really pretty. So here it is next to Lavender Sky in one coat of each. I have used Lavender Sky as a neutralizing base coat before, especially for like negative space nail art, but there definitely is a noticeable purple color to it, even on one coat alone. It definitely is beautiful when it's built up on its own, but as far as like a neutralizing kind of base color goes, I think I do prefer Kismet. So here it is in two coats of each, and then I thought to layer Linen over Lavender Sky to see if I can just recreate how Kismet looks once it's built up on three coats. So if you do happen to have these two Cirque shades, you can kind of dupe the vibe, but it's not an exact color match. So remember how I said that Hearth Jelly was picking up a little too orangey maybe? I wanted to show it next to Cirque's Red Hook, which is actually a cream polish, but I thought color-wise it was probably really close. So yeah, Hearth Jelly is just a little bit lighter and softer and squishy. As far as actual jelly comparisons, I did want to show this next to Peach Jelly because it just looks like a very darker, redder peach. So I'm actually going to be using that to try and recreate Hearth Jelly, but I think maybe a closer color comparison is Rust Jelly, which made its comeback a couple of months ago. This one is a bit darker and more of a rusty kind of reddish color. So here is two coats of Hearth Jelly and Rust Jelly on the nail. You can see just how soft and muted Hearth is. So I thought to soften up Rust Jelly and also lighten it, I could do one coat of Peach Jelly over that. And I was honestly kind of surprised. Like, they're not exact dupes, but it's pretty close. I think if I had a paddle brush in Peach Jelly, the application would look a lot smoother and the color would be more passable. Then for Zen Jelly, I wanted to show this next to Walnut Jelly, which was from that same tortoise set as Rust. This one was described as a warm leaning brown, but I feel like it has a little bit of yellow in it. I think a closer color comparison is actually Cocoa Jelly, where I would say that this is a warm leaning brown with a little bit of like a purple undertone to it. But even though they might look really similar in the bottle, aside from one being warmer and the other's cooler, they definitely look very different on the nail. I'm wearing two coats of each, and Cocoa Jelly is a lot more sheer. I feel like Cocoa Jelly just reads as like a true brown and it's not as smoky purple as Zen Jelly is. So I thought to kind of get some of that smokiness, I could layer a coat of NSFW Jelly over Cocoa, but that only really darkened it, so I wasn't able to really recreate it. And lastly, I wanted to do a quick bottle comparison for Ebb and Flow next to La Vie and Rose. I thought the cold states of these polishes, as you see here in the bottle, were kind of similar, but La Vie and Rose is more of like a hot pink magenta color, while Ebb and Flow is purple, but they have the same holographic sparkle. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons for Cirque's latest Do Good and their Good Vibrations collection. As always, I would love to know what your thoughts are on these releases. Like I mentioned before, I really do love when Cirque does these Do Good polishes. This is definitely a very meaningful one for Cirque specifically. The polish itself is absolutely beautiful. I can see how some people might feel like it's kind of done before by them. So as a reminder, if you don't want to actually get the polish, you can still support the charity if you want. I will have that also linked down below. And as far as the collection goes, I actually did enjoy it. I mean, no surprise, I am a big fan of jellies, so I really did enjoy the 3 new ones that we got. I thought they were just really pretty, even if 2 of them are pretty dupeable depending on the jellies you already have in your collection. I was also pleasantly surprised with how much I liked the thermals. I mean, obviously, as you guys know, I have been pretty harsh about Cirque with their thermal collection from a few summers ago, but they have released other thermals before and they all were generally really good. So I think that one collection was just a really bad bump in the road, but I know that generally thermals are still a controversial kind of finish because they just have a shorter shelf life. But for what it's worth, I do think these 2 are really beautiful too. And the glitter topper is cute. It's not my favorite because I'm personally not a big fan of like the big round glitters. But I do love that chunky glitters are kind of having a resurgence. So overall, I think the collection is like a cute and cozy one. I'm just really happy about the actual quality of these polishes. So if you are interested in grabbing anything everything that I shared in today's video, I will have Cirque's website link down below. And as a reminder, I am an affiliate with Cirque, so I have a code that you can use. You can use PolishedYogi10 to save 10% off your order. It is a one-time use code, but you can also use my specific affiliate link to also support me and my channel. As always, big thank you to those of you who do that. But again, let me know how you're feeling about these releases, if you're feeling them, if you're not super interested in them because they're jellies, and I know so many of you are over jellies. But for those of you who are into them, or maybe even entertaining the thermals, I want to hear your thoughts, so make sure to leave them down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!